league claimed a good man in fish, and you know, from myself and I know everyone on board here were very deeply affected by it, and offer our thoughts to the family and his friends.
Chris Nicholson, watch leader on board Team Axonabel, just talking about the loss of John Fisher from Sun Hung Kai Scallywag a few days ago, an accident that is reverberating across the fleet and indeed around the sailing community around the world. We're going to be hearing more from some of the sailors about John Fisher and also Cape Horn, this iconic moment that has been coming up to signal the end of the Southern Ocean portion of Leg 7. But first of all, before we do that, let's take a look at the tracker and see how the fleet is spread out on the water at the moment. Well, Sun Hung Kai Scallywag is making their way to the Chilean coast, and they are now active on the tracker. You can have a look at them on the website, and that's for friends and family and indeed fans of the race to keep an eye on their progress. But we're going to follow the 6 teams that are still racing on Leg 7. Team Brunel hold on to the lead, and they have been jibing very close to the Chilean coast, just 30 miles away at times, and have kept that lead, while behind them, the group really closed down together to get a very tight group chasing for second. Vestas 11th Hour Racing are leading that charge at the moment, but Bauer Becking has certainly pulled out a very healthy lead. Now, these are the live positions right now. This is the current position of Bauer Becking and the sailors on board Team Brunel, and they are about to round Cape Horn and pick up that extra bonus point. But more importantly than that, rounding Cape Horn is a significant moment for any sailor or indeed any ocean racer. But after that, things do not let up. We know that the conditions, the waves, the winds have been incredibly challenging for the sailors all the way through the Southern Ocean, and it keeps going that way. Upwind after Cape Horn, in huge seas, in big waves, until they get to the Falkland Islands, where there is slightly some relief waiting for them. But certainly the first rounding is going to be indeed challenging. Before we came on air, I spoke to some of the sailors in the fleet about the loss of John Fisher and also this iconic moment, this iconic rounding coming up in just a few moments' time. Simon, thank you very much for joining me. We're getting into those last few hours, those last few moments before you'll round Cape Horn. I mean, this is an iconic moment in every sailor's life.
Yeah, it's certainly an important one, and something that everyone, I can speak for everyone on board and say we're really looking forward to getting around Cape Horn. It's been, you know, it's an iconic moment in any sailor's life, that's for sure. It's certainly the hardest of the Great Capes to take on, and I think this has probably been the toughest Southern Ocean leg on record for quite some time. I'm on my 5th race now, and I certainly don't remember one as hard. So yeah, we're really looking forward to getting there. And as usual, it's blowing about 35 knots and gusting 40. So really, there's just been no let off for the last week and a half to these conditions. So yeah, to pass the Horn and to be able to slowly turn left and head back into the Atlantic and for warmer waters is going to be quite something.
It doesn't seem to end. Looking ahead, the weather's still going to hold a good few challenges.
We're certainly looking forward to, you know, taking stock, taking a moment to, yeah, realise what we've achieved by getting around Cape Horn, and also, yeah, I think to pause and think about John and the Scallywag guys who've obviously had been through a terrible ordeal, and I think it'll be a nice moment to sort of pay their respect to those guys, and then yeah, then it's going to be back to it. And I think in many ways the hardest bit of the race is coming up. The temptation at the Horn is to turn hard left and start going north, find that warmer water, especially after snowstorms and hail have become the norm in the last couple of, you know, the last few days. But it's going to be a sort of a slow turn left, which I mean, we're in the cold for a little bit longer, but hopefully we'll be put behind us the steady 35 knot downwind sailing conditions and the 40 knot squalls that have become sort of de rigueur over the last couple of days. So yeah, we're looking forward to it, and there's certainly light at the end of the tunnel at the moment, but there's probably another tunnel to come.
Dee, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Well, I mean, this has been quite a tricky leg. I mean, the conditions just seem relentless.
Well, it was interesting because it wasn't that long ago we had a pretty gentle start out of Auckland and a pretty gentle introduction into the South, but since we've been in the breeze, the South has really delivered what it's all about, and it does feel like we've been down here a very long time, getting wet and hosed and tired and cold, but suddenly now the end is in sight. There's like a light at the end of the tunnel.
Now, you've been down to this part of the world many times, most notably single-handed. I wonder, how does this time compare with the responsibility of being skipper?
It's kind of a little bit like a proud mom moment. I mean, they've been asking me questions throughout this leg. We've been the furthest south they've ever been, and they were asking if I'd been further south. And then every time we jibed, I was reminding them that, you know, one of my occasions down here was actually upwind as well. And so we've shared a few jokes about that. But this moment now is I've got 6 people that had never been in the Southern Ocean before leg 3. One of which had never been in the Southern Ocean before leaving Auckland, who are all about to, in a few miles' time, round Cape Horn, that notorious landmark that not many people get to do. And they've been working really hard, very diligent, and have never kind of dropped their heads. There's been some tough moments where they've all been wet and cold and tired and could really be over it. And I've promised them warm beaches and caipirinhas in Brazil. They just have to keep working for it, and they've definitely done that.
The events of the last few days have certainly given everybody pause for thought. Being down here in this part of the world, has it shifted your perspective at all?
I think I'm very respectful of it, and the guys now have seen there's an element of tenacity, resilience, and all the kind of soft skills that people don't often talk about when you're talking about offshore sailing and racing. And I think those soft skills are much more important when you're in this kind of environment, and I think they've been tested to the limits. With the tragic news we've had this week, it's been very hard then for them to realign the balance. And I asked them today if they were excited about Cape Horn, and they said it was kind of, it had taken the excitement away a little bit, because it was the realization of how vulnerable they are down here, how hostile the environment is down here, and how quickly things can go bad, and how, you know, during the course of this leg, they've all lost a friend. And, you know, that's affected everyone pretty deeply. And so we're saying that this rounding's definitely for fish.
Yeah, well, of course, I would like to mention, you know, the devastating news coming from Scallywag a couple of days ago, where, you know, a friend, a racer, one of our, you know, competitors fall off to the water, and they couldn't find him. So, you know, to lose fish like this has been very, very tough for us, and everyone, you know, I guess we keep racing because we don't really want to think about it, but I think, you know, we want to really get away from this place, start going north, and slowly trying to digest this very bad news came.
For those of us that have never been down to the Southern Ocean and never really ventured that far offshore, somehow, I mean, put us on the boat with you, paint a picture. What is it really like to come up against these conditions?
Yeah, it's different. It's certainly very different. I mean, on board it's very cold. On deck for the last few days it's been 2 degrees and the water's only been in 5 or 6, which means actually inside the boat, you know, there's condensation on every surface. Everywhere I touch is wet. You know, the only sort of warm, dry place really is in your sleeping bag, which when you're doing lots of manoeuvres, you don't get to spend too much time in, and that's before you get to the sailing part. You know, the amazing thing about this leg is it's just been so relentless. The conditions have been so strong. It's been storm after storm, and then in between storms, it's been cloud after cloud, and every cloud that comes through comes with fully knocked gusts, and you know, that means you're always on edge. You're pushing the boat hard anyway. You know, the fleet's so close, the standard's so good that, you know, you've got to give it 100% all the time, which means when the squalls come through and you've got 5, 10, 15 knots more wind, then all of a sudden, you know, you really are on the edge, and it's a delicate balance of keeping everything under control. So, you know, just the combination of the cold temperatures, the hard conditions, the wind, and the pressure of racing, and the amount you have to push just to stay in contention with this fleet is really, really unbelievable. And this has gone on for for days and days, and then just jibing or tacking, changing direction on the boat could take up to an hour sometimes. So really, yeah, there's not been much rest, and the conditions have been very difficult. So yeah, we're certainly looking forward to A, warmer conditions, and B, going in a straight line for a little bit, and hopefully eventually in the coming days drying out.
You can't imagine how happy we are of going just around Cape Horn, because things change dramatically from 1 minute to the other, and hopefully the system is much better. It's going to be still cold, but I'm sure it's going to be much quieter.
What about your crew? How have they been holding up? Because this has been an unbelievable test of their endurance.
Yeah, it's been, well, of course, can't be more happy. Probably, well, as all of you know, we had the problem day 2 or day 3 with the mast track. And, the easiest way would be just to drop and try to fix it and lose the whole thing. And I think we have been fighting so hard to be here still. We did probably a mistake today, and that's why we lost a little bit with Don and Vestas, but we've been pretty much fighting with them all the way to the horn. So, can be more proud. Tell you, hasn't been much sleep, and the condition has been very, very hard. I've been several times down here, and I don't know if they're the toughest, but certainly up there. And it's been very, very challenging, and very happy to go around, but there's still 200 miles to go. So you have to be all stand by all the way to the horn.
You mentioned the mast track. You mentioned the fact that you had that problem early on in the leg. Can you give us the latest? What is the damage, and what does it stop you doing?
Well, basically a section of the mast track is got unglued completely. So of course the car buttons they go in this piece of the mast. They are loose, but then when you rev up and down, the position changes. We have pretty much half of the mainsail hanging up with no car buttons, and we're just waiting for the opportunity with the wind to drop a little bit and start working on it. We have ratchet strap the track itself to the mast, so we just try to keep everything together.
We saw Team Axel Nobel in the last Southern Ocean leg re-gluing their mast track onto the mast. Is that an option for you? Do you feel like you have a chance to get this fixed?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know if glue or as I said before, just ratchet it down, because of course we've been pushing very, very hard this wherever the track was left, and it's not straight enough we don't think it's straight enough to just glue and make it fully functional. So we're just working hard on options, and was the least worst, let's say, because we know it's not going to be perfect, but becomes downwind a bit lighter, we can do something to fix at least to hoist the main completely and be fighting for the leg.
On this leg, you've certainly proved yourself very capable and very much fast.
Yeah, it's been hard before because, when the pressure's on and the wind's up, we've normally fallen off the pace. And this leg, we seem to have found the groove, and we've made some really good tactical decisions on when to jibe and, where to position ourselves. And we've managed to stay in the middle of the pack. And I think that's given us a lot more confidence to keep going. But I haven't changed my attitude, as in when to throttle back and when to, just reduce the sail plan and just sit with what we've got. And I think the guys seeing that that's a prudent decision, and actually the rest of the fleet, we're still staying with them. I think they've respected that, and they've grown as sailors to appreciate that it's not all foot to the floor. There's times to know when to throttle back sometimes.
Surely you're sailing with a different bunch of sailors now than you were, well, at the beginning of the race, but even at the start of this leg.
We're confident in how to set the boat up and get it sailing. They thought we could only do it in the light winds, and here we are, still with everybody at the key landmark, and there's a whole race left to go. And the race can easily be lost now, but it can't be won. There are winnings to be done in those final few thousand miles that we've still got to go.
Dee Kafari and some of our other sailors of the Volvo Ocean Race fleet just reflecting on this moment as the fleet bears down on Cape Horn and comes around. And to get the latest on the position and indeed see if we can see whether we do in fact have our first boat round, let's go back to the track and have a look at the live positions right now. We know that Brunel is very close to rounding, and indeed if they haven't done so already, they will do so in the next few moments. Behind them, it's going to be Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and then if people carry on the positions they are, Dongfeng Race Team will be round in third. Now, this has been a very difficult, challenging leg for everybody, and this moment, this rounding of Cape Horn, marks a significant end to the Southern Ocean Passage, at least geographically, before then we start seeing the boats coming up to the finish line in Itajaí. It is not all over yet. There are still plenty more challenges to come, but a very big moment in the race and also in the lives of all these sailors. And just to give us an idea as to just why it is that Cape Horn is so iconic in the world, in sailing, and indeed in the Volvo Ocean Race, we pulled out some messages from days past to give us some understanding of why Cape Horn is so revered.
Cape Horn, the southernmost tip of the Americas, patrolling the meeting point of two vast oceans. Since man first circumnavigated the world, the Horn has held a particular mystique, particular fascination.
Ahead of them lies the southernmost tip of America, the legendary Cape Horn, a wild, isolated promontory of massive rock jutting far out into the roaring 40s and deflecting their fury into some of the world's most treacherous seas. The strength of the prevailing wind from astern demands constant vigilance from the helmsman to prevent the yacht from broaching in the heavy following swell. As the boats pass the Horn, the weather lives up to its capricious reputation, treating the yachts to everything from light airs to a storm forced tail.
Over there! On your right! There!
Flyer's crew makes certain the famous landmark is recognized.
The yachts are greeted by the Chilean and Argentine navies as they pass the famous landmark. Breakfast at Cape Horn for Peter Blake and his crew is a thick sandwich on deck. In an ever-increasing wind, they have an exhilarating sail within half a mile of the shore, until Cape Horn lives up to its evil reputation and plays its own special brand of party tricks with a series of vicious squalls up to 50 knots.
Can you really say you and the crew have enjoyed the Southern Ocean League?
No, we haven't, and everybody's shaking their head around me, so they approve of what I'm saying. We haven't enjoyed this leg, but you know, as I've said, it's like, a bit like going to the Southern Ocean, a bit like going to the dentist. You don't enjoy it, you've got to go there every now and again to live on with life, and it's part of the Whitbread race, and fair to say we're pretty happy that we're actually leaving it.
And now we are turning the corner and entering the Atlantic Ocean, and every day will be warmer and warmer.
Finally.
Speechless.